Hello guys and welcome back. So the issue was that this geometry that we were using for the collision didn't have any velocity attribute. If we go under the collision, the smoke object under relationship collision, see this option here says use point velocity for collision. This works if the object is not changing topology, which is not the case here. The object is changing topology. So when we provided the mesh that doesn't have the point velocity, Houdini and DOPS were trying to create the velocity for this mesh, which doesn't work. So what we're going to do is we need to store the we need to provide this with the correct velocity vector for it to work, and we have to go back all the way and store the point velocity store the point velocity with this. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a wrangle node and just provide an empty velocity vector, and this should still give us the result that we need, because we just want the smoke to be pushed by these guys, and they don't that for it to happen doesn't necessarily have to have the velocity vector. And the proper way to fix this is to go back to the process where we save this and transfer the velocity attribute from the mesh into this low res mesh, and or use the mid res or the high res RBD sim itself. You don't have to use the low res version in this case. So I'm going to hit play again, and this should work now because DOPS is not trying to create a crazy velocity vector. And all I wanted to get is basically a smoke that falls down, and as these guys fall down and things like that, they would interact with the smoke, and that's all that I'm looking for. Now we can have the object emit every frame new smoke if we want to have continuous emission, but and lower the gravity so it hangs in space more. And it's totally up to you guys on how you want this airfield to look like. So once we have that, I've cached it to disk, and this is how it looks like. Let me clear the memory for this guy. This is how it looks like, and we have to make sure that we import the velocity field when we cache this. It's crucial to cache the velocity vector, and you can see it's just a box filled with volume affected with gravity and has the geometry used as the collision. That's pretty much it. I'm gonna copy. Let's go up. I'm gonna copy this guy, and let's see which one. Yeah, let's copy one of these. We'll create a new one. So let's create particles dust with air field. So let's paste that. I'm going to use the source that we've created from the debris source node, and this is the one that uses the edges. So this one I think uses the edges, yeah, or the faces, I can't remember. And I'm going to make sure that it has a velocity vector. Cool. I'm gonna copy the particle sim from one of these guys. Doesn't matter, anyone. Let's copy this, and this as well. Same setup, same pretty much everything. It's going to be the source. And let's kill this. Let's change the background to white. Come on. Okay, cool. I think this is gonna emit too much smoke, but we'll use that for now. It's fine. And then for the field, we'll also go into transform it and plug it into the second input. And I'm gonna disable the collision for now. And then here I'm gonna say pop advect by volume. Second input, and let's leave it at that. Hit play. As soon as the particle falls down, they should be interacting with the. Turn this, change it to pixel. Yeah, you see the velocity is quite strong. That's because the volume is quite. We scaled it down, so I'm going to lower the velocity scale to 0.1. And you can see it's working. And there, the particles are hanging in the air. Okay, let's set this to 0.2. Let's lower this to 0.5. And let's say update velocity instead of update force. This is good. I'm gonna change it to negative and back. And you can see the fall now is being affected by that airfield, is not just using turbulence. So let's take a look at this. There's few issues with the emission because points don't exist in the previous frame. Let me do one more thing. I'm going to change this to, instead of negative, to positive. And let's see how that looks. Yes, there's still a few issues with the emission. I'm gonna increase the velocity to 0.25. Something like, just so we can see it clearly what's happening. And we're gonna get all the nice rolling effect from that, from the velocity field, from the sim. And the better the sim, the more you invest in the sim in this airfield, the better the result is going to be. Yeah, you see here, it's probably an object falling in. And I'm gonna add a pop drag. I think everything is just going too fast. I'm gonna add a pop drag and set this to 0.1. Yeah, much better now. And we can add this to all the sources. We can add this field to everything we have. Now, in terms of if you want to have a continuous emission, because the airfield right now just falls once and basically stops there. If you want to have more continuous emission, you have to update the sourcing, and you can also use that combine VDB to subtract the volume from the source, so you only emit where it makes sense, and you don't overlap with existing geometry. Let's play through. Let's hit play and quickly take a look at this. Why is it not showing the geometry? Looks like one is being scaled down and one is not. let's take a look at this only. Yeah, it looks like there's an issue with the viewport. So let me scale this back up maybe. Let's change this to dark. Let's turn off the wireframe. Let's see how this looks. So the idea is we're going to create various emitter using using different methods. And by the way, we didn't include the collision for this guy. We definitely have to include the geometry. Maybe not all the time, but most of the time we would need some kind of collision between the geometry and the particles. And the idea is we're going to layer all these guys together and try to get the most out of them in the render. And again, there is no right or wrong method. They're all valid ideas, and I highly encourage you guys to try a combination of all this, you know, emitting from fast moving object, emitting from the debris source, using airfield, and we're gonna do one more thing now with the smoke sim. Or actually I can explain it, we don't have to repeat the same process. Yeah, I think the gravity in the smoke sim itself is too strong, and also the force is too strong. You can see it here, but I'm sure you guys got the idea. Let's see if I have the result from the previous example. Yeah, I have it. So I'm gonna do a preview. I'm gonna copy the existing sim and show it to you guys. But this is looking very cool. We just have to tweak it a bit more. And this is the kind of behavior you would want the rolling effect. I think it's too strong. Okay, let's do one more. Let's do a preview of the existing one. It's actually very cool. Ooh, nice. Very cool. Okay, let's do this. This is the previous particle sim, and I had a bigger bound overall, and there's tons of particles. Let's change it to, there's a lot of particles here, so 13 million. It's gonna take some time to preview it, but you can see the effect of this working. Cool. So the other idea that I highly encourage you guys to look into or implement is to create the same thing, the same idea that we did, but for the smoke trails. Let's go back. Let me change the viewport. So same as we did with the airfield, and we emitted particles and advected them. This we can do the same thing with this guy. We have the source that emitted these guys. We can use that same source and scatter points on it. Okay, so we just scatter points on this guy. Let me turn off, and then we emit particle from this and advect them using the particle source, using the same the same approach. And this way we're going to get particles that are trailing behind this, but also affected with all this interesting field, which is very, very cool. So we can layer different things together, and it's the same approach. There's nothing new with this. So I think that's pretty much it for the debris emission and the smoke sims. I'm going to cover a few more advanced tips and tricks, and we'll do that in the next video. Thank you guys for watching, and see you in a bit.